how does your partnership move the needle, not solve, but move the needle on what my main focus of my company is. If I fail to attach those two things, I'm always going to hear, oh, we're going to put this project off to next year. It's just not a priority. And I don't leave it to chance. Like when I propose a piece of business, the first thing you're seeing in the cover letter is, here's was your key business initiative. Here's what you said. Here's how we will help you move that towards that. And then the last key is dollarization. What the juice has to be worth the squeeze. What is the financial impact of doing this?
Man, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Forever Podcast. Man, we talk about everything branding, business. We get to interview some amazing individuals on this podcast. We got so much heat coming for you guys this year, 2025. It's been crazy. Right now, it's snowing in Virginia. I'm not really liking that. I'm not really liking that, Tony. It's kind of crazy. But I know I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so
yeah, what are you worried about?
Yeah, this is gonna be gone in a week, so I'm not even tripping on this. Man, we got a powerhouse in the building today on the Forever Podcast. Man, we got Tony in the building. So Tony is a co-founder of the Constance Group, behavioral science and sales consulting firm with offices in North Carolina and South Carolina. I actually used to live in North Carolina.
Where?
Charlotte. Yeah.
Hey, me too, man. I was in Huntersville for about 15 years.
Okay. Yeah. I do. I love Charlotte.
Yeah,
I love
too.
Charlotte. One of the cleanest cities that I've ever been to, man.
Right?
It's kind of crazy.
It's true.
It's kind of crazy. So Tony's an international speaker. He's the author of Sales Minutes for Sales Masters, and he's a certified behavioral analyst, certified in DIS, as I am as well. 12 driving forces, EQ, and Exology. And also he's a lifelong student of sales, leadership, and communication. Man, he's worked with Fortune 1,500 global 100 companies. And man, this dude's always on the road speaking, inspiring, and helping companies change for the better. And he's a master at sales. So we're gonna get into it, man. Welcome, Tony, to the podcast, man.
Thank you, my man. It's a pleasure. It's funny, the first time we talked, so I get a bunch of these requests for podcasts, and like 99% of them, I'm out, right? I'm totally out. And I saw yours, and I was really into it. I like listened to a couple of them. So when we got on the call, I was so excited to meet you. But I don't know if you remember, but I was so sick.
Yeah.
I had walking pneumonia, and I was leaving for Nashville to do a keynote at the Gaylord.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was going to a private client to do their leadership group for an entire day workshop. And then from there, I went to Lake Charles to do a keynote the next day. So it was like this 3-day run. And by the end of it, I literally thought, I said, I can't wait to tell Jamar that I made it. I did it. I didn't die. I survived.
You did look a little rough. I'm gonna be honest. I was
bad.
like, dude, I'm surprised even on the call.
Yeah. Well, and the people was like, oh, can't you take off? But you and I, we both know that first of all, try and say no to $30,000. And then also, if you don't hunt, you don't eat. So that's and that's when I say a lifelong student of sales, what it really is just, I've been in commission sales since the day I graduated college, with all the ups and downs and bumps and bruises. And it's still that way for you and I as entrepreneurs who have to sell who we are. So I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's the life. Those are the ups and downs, but the ups are pretty good. You can take downs every now and then. The ups
are pretty good, man. Yeah. The life of an entrepreneur is rough. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
A lot that goes into the business. It was so funny. I was watching this one video on TikTok. I don't know what this, I can't really shout out this guy because I don't remember the handle, because TikTok is you're just scrolling.
Right.
And I just remember seeing this guy. He said like what people think that the boss of the company is. And like, he's like got a cigar, he's got his scotch, he's like kicking down the door. His employees are just handing him things. And he's just like, he's got a championship belt on. He's just walking into the office. And then he said what it's actually like. And he's like fumbling with all like the products and stuff, and he's like trying to kick down the door. He's on the phone. He's
so
got all this stuff going on.
It's
I'm like,
so true.
that's the reality of the situation. Is entrepreneurship is tough, man. So how long have you been in the business, man? Like, how long have you been doing this for?
So my sales career kicked off right out of college. That would have been 2004.
Okay.
And then, I got slapped in the mouth because I thought I was really good. And then I got taught a lesson. And then I started to get good, right? I started to climb the ranks in the sales companies I was working with. And then in 2010 or 11, right around there, this is actually when I was in Charlotte, a company I was working for that I was selling software. They dissolved because of the economic crash. But I was lucky enough to where a couple clients, I was selling basically training software. And a couple of my clients liked me, hired me for a couple keynotes, and it kept like putting food on my table. And I was like, if I could just keep it going. And I knew I could always sell. So when you could sell, you could take that skill anywhere. So I was never worried about ending up on the street because I was a good salesperson. And so that gives you a little bit of cloud cover. And so I just never looked back, and some ups and downs and a lot of great experiences there that we could talk about. But the constant was I could sell. But honestly, in 2025, I mean, I don't think it's going anywhere at this point. So I'd say it's roughly about 13, 14 years, something like that I've been on my own.
Man. And what has been one of the lowest lows that you've had in your entrepreneurial career?
In the entrepreneurial side, what I really struggled with was being good at helping people sell, but not having the client base to prove it. And it was just this constant,
talk about that.
it was just a constant frustration of, and when you're in your early 30s, I still had beautiful hair, no gray in the beard. You know what I mean? Like, so people are looking at you some kind of way. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I had. And I remember I had gotten a training for a really nice client. They sold gambling machines in Chicago area, which is big business. I mean, these salespeople, they have a route, they go to a bar, they try and talk to bar owner doing a split. And a year later, they called me back and said they wanted a retention program, and they had grown a lot. And I was like, okay, this is great. So they liked what I did. Now they want to safeguard their clients. And I had put at that time the biggest proposal I'd ever put on the table.
Yeah.
And they said they were going
good though.
It feels good until they told me they were going in a different direction.
Oh.
And I just remember going, how on earth does that happen when I've proven my value?
Yeah.
They kind of knew my fee, and everything was lining up to where this should be simple. And I learned, and while that was a low, it was the best thing that could happen to me, because what I had done was I had basically taken the excitement and the need at face value and thrown away what I do, which is a sales process. And I'll never forget, I actually reached out to the CEO right away. I said, hey, your VP just said they're going in a different direction. You hired me the last time. And I remember he goes, Tony, I hired them. I have to stand by their decision. If I decided to step over them at their decision, what kind of owner would that make me? And he was right. And I just remember, and I needed the money at that time. And I was just thinking, and I just felt like this is never going to end. Like the journey, the challenges. And once I got good with that, then you start to settle into entrepreneurship. But that was a rough one. That was one where it's one of those where you're counting the money before it hits the bank account.
Yes.
It was that. Yeah. So that was a pretty big low. Other than that,
why did you ever find out exactly why they went, like the real reason why they went in a different direction?
Yeah. They told me mainly because of cost.
Cost.
And if you ever get a price objection, I mean, the platitude of sales trainers is you didn't sell the value, which I honestly hate. What you haven't done is dollarize a solution, which is attached what the hard numbers are to their outcomes to what you're charging, and then drill that down to the lowest common denominator. And so I've never asked, well, when you talk about retention, what's your retention rate? What's the percentage? What's a percentage point increase mean to you in dollars? Where do you think it can get to? And then benchmark your price against that, which is something I know how to do, but I just gotten so excited and I was still pretty amateur in that area that boy, that one hurt, man. I still remember that today.
Oh man, we've all been there too.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. And then the reason too, guys, why I started with one of the biggest challenges. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot of successes from Tony as well today. But dude, one thing in 2025 that I'm trying to like really let people know is like social media is just so fake. Like there's just so much fakeness. Everybody's balling, everybody's winning, everybody's got success. But deep down, like when you actually talk to people and get past the posts, there's some real stuff going on. So I really am trying to train my brain even doing like everything that I'm doing. I'm trying to make sure that people get the real story. And that's why I started with that question with you, Tony, because it's real out here. Like yes, do you have a lot of big wins? Of course, but there's some real challenges that we all go through. And guys, you just literally heard a sales guru, a sales expert, literally having sales issues early on. Because when we're doing it for ourselves, it's also a little different. Just like marketing. I know a lot of marketing agencies that can't market for themselves. Like a lot of them.
A lot. So do I.
Like a lot of them. But they're charging $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 retainers for other people. And maybe they know how to market them okay, but they can't even market themselves. So guys, this is real. This is the reality. And what you said, man, is the difference between you winning that bid and not winning it was literally by positioning value. So I want you to talk about that just a little bit more in detail, because especially for small businesses in particular, that's like their main problem. They always try to sell you the features, the benefits, or maybe, hey, you like me, we got a good connection, and that's what they try to sell you. But at the end of the day, they're like, man, why am I not getting any clients? I think you kind of touched on it, but can you go a little deeper into that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's a big conversation, but I'll tell you this, because you mentioned something that is a symptom of a lot of salespeople, and they say, "Oh, let's build rapport and let's get to where they like me." Let me tell you something: if you're not likable, sales is not a good job for you. So that should be like pillar number one, which comes with the territory. And I'm not saying you have to be all things to everybody. There's behavior, like Des. So there's ways to adapt to someone's communication style, which is part of that. But building rapport is an outcome. What do you do on the way to making that happen? You need specific steps. When we talk about value, and specifically, if you lose something to price, what you have failed to do is a couple things within the formula. And that formula is very simple, especially in B2B transactions. It's what is, and I call it the key business initiative, or it could be the main focus of the company. But let's just say you were selling to me, you'd say, Tony, before we jump into marketing and branding, like I'll put myself in your shoes, like before we talk about the branding thing that we're here to talk about and how to market your business, let me back up for a minute and help me understand, what would you say the main focus of the Constance Group is? And it's like one, maybe two things. And I would tell you it's scalability. How do I scale my business because I'm running out of calendar days? And so what you then do is then you start to drill down the conversation to what it is you're there to talk about in your world branding, my world sales training, and leadership sales training. And we would say, okay, now then, how does your partnership move the needle, not solve, but move the needle on what my main focus of my company is? If I fail to attach those two things, I'm always going to hear, oh, we're going to put this project off to next year. It's just not a priority. And I don't leave it to chance. Like when I propose a piece of business, the first thing you're seeing in the cover letter is, was your key business initiative. Here's what you said. Here's how we will help you move that towards that. And then the last key is dollarization. What the juice has to be worth the squeeze. What is the financial impact of doing that? So my questions are easy. All right, well, how big is the sales team? What is the average net margin revenue per sale? What is your lowest sale? What is your highest sale? What's your closing rate? If I get that up by 1 or 2 points, what's that mean to you in dollars? So I'm actually getting, to me, what's the bare minimum I can do to their perceived maximum ROI? So I could charge you six figures if one of your sales is a $500,000 piece of equipment. Like Caterpillar is one of my clients, right? So when I asked him, I said, well, how much is on average is one of your combines that you sell to a farmer? And he's like, $500,000. I go, well, how many salespeople do you have? He said, we have 16. I said, okay. So if I could just get one person to sell one more piece of farming equipment this year than before they'd met me. And this is how I end. I said, if I can't do that, I have no business being in this business for 14 years. And so those numbers have to make sense to the client. Most salespeople say, it'll help you do this, it'll help you do this, but I'm not using your data. I'm only using my perceived value.
Yeah. Dude, that's gold. That's gold. And also I like how you broke it down so simply for people to really look into how are they pitching, you know? And oftentimes it's not really, you don't have to pitch. You just have to have a conversation. And that's kind of where you started. Like, hey,
100%.
Find some understanding and figure out what their goals are. What's a priority for them now? Because if you're telling them a bunch of stuff that's not a priority, guys, listen, you're not going to get the sale. It might be something too that they need, but if it's not a priority to them, that's why you guys are getting turned down. That's why you guys are getting a no. And that's why you don't have clients. It's because you have to know what's a priority to them now and attach yourself to know that you're the only. So I always say this quote from an amazing person, Precious Williams. I don't know if you know her. She's an amazing speaker. She calls herself the pitch master. And she has been on Shark Tank. She's done like a bajillion things in her life.
Check her out.
But she always says, be the only choice that matters.
Ooh,
so like you have to make sure that after you're done with that conversation, they're like, dude, I need Tony. I need Tony. It's not even like I want Tony. I need him to get to that, to meet my goals. He's the only choice that I need.
Yeah.
I don't need to look anywhere else.
Well, here's what's crazy about that. You can get that without saying one thing about your solution or product, which is where most salespeople have a massive disconnect. Like, so think about this. If you're a big business and you call in a consultant, why would that business call in a consultant? It's because that business has determined they have a problem that they don't know how to solve on their own. The consultant isn't saying, here's how you solve it. The consultant, in fact, the whole joke is, consultants prolong problems. That's how they get paid. But we call ourselves sales consultants. So therefore, I need to position myself in front of you as not being able to move forward without my guidance. But you don't do that by telling them how to solve the problem. In fact, that they need you less when you help them solve their problem too early. So what you're trying to do, I call it deficit selling, is you usually think you're here. When you get done talking to me, I'm widening the gap through my questioning skills to where the brain goes, Tony has something back there in this like Wizard of Oz curtain behind him that's causing him to ask these questions that I clearly have a gap in. I don't have the answers to these. I haven't thought of these. I'm not sure what I would do. And now based on Tony asking me these questions, I am going to rely on him to guide me through the rest of this process. And that typically is happening first 30 minutes of a conversation, 30 minutes to an hour. So by the time you get to presentation stage, you said it already. I love what you said. To me, it's a very logical conclusion to an upfront problem finding conversation.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. 100%. Where did you like, do you just have a love for sales, or is it a love for human behavior? Like, what is it? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this, Tony?
Bro, I got lucky, man. I got a horseshoe up my ass because my father is hands down one of the greatest salespeople that have ever lived. And he is quietly one of the most powerful sales trainers and consultants ever. And he just was one of these individuals that wanted more of a lifestyle business, became a very comfortable millionaire, having like maybe 5 clients, right? That paid him very well, put him on retainer. They paid him not to train their competitors.
Yeah.
Right. So and these were very big companies, right? Which is where I found my way in when you did the opening about the Global 100 and Fortune 500 companies. that's how I got into that, because my process was already working in there. So everything I learned, I wish I could tell you it's from my own genius, but it's not. It's something that I watched my dad do. He wrote a book in the 80s that is still incredibly relevant, but nobody knows about it. And it's one of those things where he was just very happy, did not need to scale the business, was all good, kind of being the whale in his lake. And that's how he lived. And so for me, there was a really fun opportunity to extend that, because it was still like, most people go, well, this is great. This is fresh. And I go, It is great. But I'll tell you what, it's also been in the marketplace for over 50 years. And so I watched it. I'm the third of uh, three kids, right? So I got an older brother and sister. I'm the only one who's like my dad, right? So I've got I got the DNA of my father. My brother and sister, bless them, they don't. They went off to do other things in their lives. And when I was growing up, I had seen the outcome of a successful salesperson. I had seen, I wouldn't call us ultra wealthy or anything, but I also was private school kid, was pretty, I wasn't going to end up on the street. You know what I mean? With that, my dad let me struggle. He figured out ways to make it not easy. So there's a nice balance that he created for me, but you couldn't hide the fact that my dad had cool friends. He had rich friends. Everybody was asking him for advice. We had a boat. We had Cadillacs, it was like, so for me, I'm just being honest, right? Like you said it, I'm not going to BS anybody.
Yeah.
So like for me, I went, damn, sales, what a gig. What a gig sales is. And then I got in it and I got punched in the face and I got the lights shut off at my house. And I was like, oh, this is harder than it looks. So my dad laughed at me. He's like, yeah, son, you saw the outcome. By the time, my dad had me at 40. So you think about, that would like be me having a son 3 years ago. So I'm 43. So that's a long runway of what I didn't see, which is grind, heartache, pain, long weekends, long nights. And he was incredibly dominant salesperson. And so when I figured that's what it takes, I got back to the drawing board. I really got into how he did it. And my first goal was to model how he did it, be successful. And then the second goal was to make it Tony. Like, so I couldn't be my dad. That was a big mistake I made. I was never going to be him. I am not him, even though we have the same personality. We're just not our parents, right? So for me, I had to make it Tony, and that's when it really clicked. So to answer your question a long way, I've always seen it. I've always observed it. I've always been around it. I've lived and breathed it. And my passion now is to give that gift back to other people, because to me, sales is the greatest profession in the world.
Yeah, 100%. So you said a lot there, and I just want to break a couple things down just for the audience, just really quick. First of all, generational impact is crazy. It's crazy. It really, like, the fact that you had that role model, had that structure, had something to look up to, even in your environment, is incredibly powerful. And so I say that to everybody is, if that's not your current situation, then for me, I'm the change your circle, change your life guy. So that's all I ever talk about is change your circle, change your life. Look, if that's not your environment today, get around some people that are doing it, right? So that way that you can learn from those individuals. I'm sure Tony going in blind, if he didn't have that example, I mean, who knows? Who knows where he would be today, right? No one knows where he would be today, but he definitely had some kind of example or some type of like just constantly getting it, even through osmosis. So you say you have some siblings too. I'm sure that they gotten some things throughout osmosis.
A little bit.
A little bit. I mean, it's got to be something, like, just even if they weren't really interested, they got to at least have something. Like, I mean, are they at least doing well? Are they doing?
No, they're wonderful. My sister ended up in the military, and now she works doing grant work for the government, like for underserved communities. So she's more of our compassionate one in the family. And
Okay.
my brother has been in women college sports since the day he got out of college. So he's coached all over women's soccer from Clemson, Arizona State, Harvard, Maryland. So he's a stud in his own right. So yeah, maybe there is a little something.
See,
there.
okay, come on. They're all driven, okay? They're all driven in their own unique ways. So something rubbed off on them from just being around that proximity of just that example, right? And so people, if you're in a situation where you don't have that, please, you got to make some adjustments and intentionality around changing your circle and getting around the right people. And oftentimes, even for companies, so like if your culture is not what you would like it to be, and your sales, you guys are being mediocre out there. A lot of you are, be honest. A lot of you guys are. They're listening. CEOs are listening. Like, just ask yourself, really, is your sales team where it needs to be right now? Are you just letting things slide, letting things get by because it's working? Are you doing what's always worked or what got you here? Is that what you're constantly doing? Or do you have any other examples currently right now within your sales organization that you can really point to and say, man, we want to be like that? That's what's guiding us. Ask yourself those questions and keep listening to Tony, because I'm just saying, if you guys got it, okay, cool. We're happy for you. Keep it up. But a lot of us, I don't think we have it like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, the bar is low. I hate to say that like that.
The bar is low.
But the sales industry, for as much information as we have access to, it's for some reason it fails to get out of the blocks into extreme professionalism.
Why is that? Why?
I've had some theories on that. One, the age of that we've been in the last 20 years around digital marketing.
Yeah.
You're able to, this is my opinion, so don't take it for gospel, but you're able to key in on the personality type that you can appeal to in very short chunks, like the TikTok style. So the personality that is traditionally in a sales role is that DI combination, right? So you and I both know DISC. So the D is the driver, which is the closing component, and the high I is the relationship verbal skills.
Yes.
About 73% of successful hunters, not farmers, but hunters, not account managers, come from that combination. Okay. So if you know that about your demographic as a skilled marketer, you can then create your messaging to say, you just got to press hard, 3 copies, kick ass, take names, right? and you go, yeah, I resonate with this person, therefore I buy it. I'm not going to call anybody out, right? You've probably seen these people, and I'm a competitive person, right? I have a rule that I don't mention my competitors by name, but I also hate them. I hate their guts. Like I do. Right. So I told you I'd be real, man. So, and you should, like, you should, friendly competition is cool, but you should also be really mad when your competition's winning. And it's a North Star, right? I give them their flowers. They're great marketers. They're doing that way better than I am. But I will come across situations where a client has used a competitor and they'll say, how come you're not as famous as this person? How come that's not happening? And I think that it's because in this age where we're flooding people with very short content and skills, that sales is one of those things where everyone's looking for the easy button and the 101 ways to overcome an objection and 99 fancy closes. And this is my problem, I need a quick fix. When in reality, sales is a game of sophistication and human behavior, which is not always simple. People are complex. Even if if you then get into a B2B situation, you're talking to multiple people. They're all making decisions based on the highest impact of themselves and their career, not always the ROI, unless it's the CEO. And so you think, man, how do you navigate people like that? How do you navigate personalities? How do you add in behavioral modeling that puts things in your favor? How to use language? And so there's a lot of science. The reason they call it a science behind it, that you got to work at it. You can't just sit here and I like it. Like, before we got on, I was like, is this visual? Is everyone going to see my sweatshirt?
Yeah, I was going to bring it up.
So, but just take football in general, right? Most people love football. So like, it's a really good example.
Yeah.
On Sundays, they play the game. On Mondays, they watch the tape. They review what they did. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they're usually strength training and getting things right. On Thursdays, they implement the game plan. Friday, Saturday, they do the walk through the game plan. Sunday, they play the game. That is professionalism. And these are people that are getting paid millions and millions of dollars who have been doing it since they were 5 years old, and they still do it every single week. Because as Kobe once said, and I heard this from my buddy named Alan Stein, who you should probably get on the podcast. He said, Kobe told him, I never get tired of the basics. And so if you think about who we are trying to influence behavior. We are trying to influence people's thought process. We're battling cognitive dissonance. We're battling siloing and protectionism. And if you don't understand how your strategy eliminates those natural barriers, you're going to fail, and you're not practicing, and you're hitting that easy button. So I think it's gotten a little bit worse. Now there's levels of organizations I'll talk to where they are great. There's levels where I go, man, they're not great. And I'd say the more of them, I'll be just flat out frank, they're not willing to put in the good work that'll put them in the top 10% of the industry.
Man, so I agree with you. But let me just ask you something. I do feel like that quick marketing that you're talking about, so that works with low ticket stuff, right? Low ticket stuff. But when you talk about high ticket stuff, that's where I feel like you have to have what you sell, like what you talk about, what you speak on. Like you have to have that human behavior. You have to know disc. You need to understand people. You need to understand different selling methods, because even if you dump in all this money into that quick marketing, right? And the thing is, I love both. Yeah, to be honest, I do love both, because I think you got to have somebody that's waving the flag, says, hey, look at me over here, and get attention. And I think that's what the short form videos do. They get attention to say, look at me. You haven't heard of me before, but now I'm engaging you and I'm entertaining you in a way that at least you're going to click. But then what happens is it helps. You can get that low ticket stuff, but once they get somebody on the phone that's got to close, dude, I still think they gotta know this. But so I'm gonna ask you this in a different way.
Yeah.
Once we get them on the phone, why do companies settle so much with their sales, and they're not putting in the reps like you described, like in a football game where it's like they're working 7 days throughout the week on this stuff? Yeah. Fundamentals, basics, the same regimen every single time. Why is sales a wild west? Literally. I mean, I've walked into stuff where I'm like, I've been to a lot of unique places. I'm gonna just let you know. Okay. And I've seen some stuff behind the curtain, and I'm like, this is how this is running.
I know.
This is crazy. This is a huge company, and they got it's just like they could do whatever they want. And so why is that? Why is it, especially if sales is the number one driver? Like if you don't have cash, your business is done. So why is it that sales is just one of these things that it's like, we're not crafting it, but we'll tweak this, marketing to be like, okay, let's maybe put this more in the budget. Let's tweak it this. Let's try this demographic. Let's maybe try this copy. Let's try this ad. Let's try this creative. It's like so many tweaks, but where is that in the sales?
That's a great question. And before I get into that, I want to say this. You asked, why do I think the bar is low? It's because I think the behavior of salespeople is to just take those shortcuts that they see and not dive in. Because you'll see me doing the quick tips and stuff on social too.
Yeah.
I want to attract you in within the 1 minute box that I have. But I just think that most salespeople are going, well, I'm not going to go any further. I'm not going to do what it takes. So I totally agree with you. I'm a big believer in marketing. I used to think sales is more important than marketing. I don't believe that anymore. I think it's marketing might edge out sales depending on the business, but they certainly are equal. So to me, so why do some companies not get it? There's such a big answer that rolls up into one word, which is culture. So so there's a couple cultures that I'll look at that I know are going to be a problem child. And here's how I look at my different cultures in an organization. You either have an operationally driven culture, you have an HR driven culture, or you have a sales driven culture. Those are the three that I see. And however the leadership runs, sales runs up to one of those and lets that individual or that leadership structure drive their revenue source, that's what's going to happen. So let's just take an HR driven culture. HR is training, development, learning, hiring, curriculums. However, you're not going to get an HR manager who's fired for lack of sales performance. They don't like if the revenue number goes down, very rarely does the HR manager get a hold accountable. The VP of sales does. But then I'll say, can I help you hire salespeople with the assessment that I use? And they go, no, that's got to run through HR. I go, wait a minute. That's like the old line. You want me to cook the meal, but I can't choose the ingredients. Right. And so they really straight, like when I'm working in these big organizations, you're talking about, I mean, changing structure of organizations. It could be moving the Titanic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Operationally driven organizations live and die by their product, and they educate clients. And this is a big problem in tech companies because they've usually had a fast ramp up because they were fast to market, very logical sale. All they had to do was get people on the phone, and people were like, man, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this. Buy. Yep. And then it grows, and then at scale, they fail to have something repeatable. So then you're starting to get junior salespeople in there, and they're going, well, do what Jamar does. He's our top seller. Well, I can't code Jamar. Jamar's a badass. I don't know what, like Jamar's got an it factor.
Yeah.
And also Jamar's not skilled at transferring knowledge. So, and then operationally, then the people go, well, we got this RFP. Let's go after it. We got this opportunity. That's a good customer. That's a good prospect. Let's go after it. And as opposed to a sales culture that says, no. My job is to be the voice of the customer. Everything runs up from the sales organization runs up to either the chief revenue officer or chief growth officer, and they own the decisions in the sales organization, and nobody else does. From hiring to implementing a sales strategy to driving revenue growth in that culture, that's who they are, and that's how they live and breathe. And then the rest of the company knows that nothing happens unless a sale is made. Yeah. So those are and you'll see, you've seen this where the companies demonize their own salespeople.
Yes.
When they're the ones putting food on the plate.
Yes.
I've literally, I would never mention them by name, but I have a client where half of my battles is the new CFO doesn't like salespeople. And I go, you cannot, you don't think they're going to figure that out. And they're wondering why they're struggling to get some change behavior. And so why does this happen? Well, depends on the approach, right? If you hired really good salespeople, you typically go, I don't need to teach you, so I'm gonna let you run. And as that scales out, that becomes a problem. If I hire junior salespeople, I may need more training, but they're junior, so they may leave. Am I going to keep them forever? They're low level, they're entry level. How much money am I going to put into them? And it just is this perpetuating cycle of really not knowing where to go with it. When in reality, you should just be, we are a sales company. We're never going to stop improving our sales culture. We're never going to stop talking about what happens when a sale doesn't happen. And everything drives towards revenue through sales growth. So that's it.
Man, it's such a good answer because it is culture. It's got to be the answer. So what do you think about people like Grant Cardone, Andy Elliott? You know, people that are just screaming sales to the top of their lungs. What do you think about those guys?
I always, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have had probably a different answer, right?
Okay.
My tenacity and my personality. Again, I'm very competitive. I got a little bit of that Italian fire in me. You know what I mean? And so now I first ask, what are they doing right? So clearly they are creating great connections and they have a high net network. Because you take Andy Elliott, to me, he came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere,
I've
bro.
been doing this for 16 years. and and I'll tell you, most of my competitors aren't them. My
Yeah.
competitors are Sandler, Miller Hyman,
Yeah.
Challenger, Richardson. Those are the ones, like, when I'm competing for a business, those are the big ones that I compete with. So I wonder what their market is, right? And I don't
Mhm.
see them going past some of the transactional sales like cars and solar, and that's typically not our world. So
Okay.
it could be that their message is required for those individuals, because I have dealt with car dealerships, and you want to talk about, I mean, I don't, if a car dealership engaged me right now, they'd have to pay me a lot of money,
Yeah.
because to work with those cultures is honestly very difficult. You're
Mm.
not teaching sophisticated sales skills. You're teaching, be happy and excited when a customer comes in.
So
Be professional. Tuck in your shirt. Like,
my guy, a really good friend of mine named Randy Walensky. So shout out Randy. He speaks all over the place, but he speaks on customer service.
mm.
He literally got hired in for just to go off of what you just said. He literally got hired, and he's like, "We have a problem with smiling." I'm not kidding. They paid him thousands of dollars, bro.
Yeah, I know.
To go in there to teach especially the salespeople,
Yeah.
how to smile.
It's
How to smile, dude. Like,
yeah,
what are we doing here?
I know. And so I think there's probably a place for that,
Oh
right?
shoot.
But think of the personality of the car sales manager. It's
Yeah.
that hustler,
Yeah.
young, hot shit sales manager that goes, "Yeah, I need Andy Elliott to tell my people they all need a six pack," which is the most hilarious thing I've ever
Yeah.
seen. I'm like, you want to talk? I give props to Andy for having the stones to say that. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, like
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
in trouble for
You be
saying,
grilling people, man,
well,
on there.
you
And I'm
wouldn't
like,
last.
whew.
There's some, I have some HR driven companies that would have me in their office pretty quickly after a comment like that. But look, I think we're playing a little bit of a different, but I mean,
Yeah.
they are definitely whooping my ass in the marketing game. They're
Yeah.
whooping my
I
ass
was
in
gonna say they're
the
marketers
content
first,
game.
though.
Yeah, they're
Like they have
marketing,
really figured out the marketing.
content,
Yeah.
content branding and marketing machines, and they're just flat out kicking my ass in that area. And so I'm willing to accept that, and I got to decide, like, if that's the road I will go, if I
Yeah.
need to scale. But in terms of what I think about them, I don't. I'll tell you this: I just don't run into their strategy and messaging with some of the customers that. And here, so part of my world also is, if I'm training your organization, most of the time they don't want me training your competitors. So we're getting deep into your
Okay.
pipeline on how to win a piece of business. And that business might be a 1-year sales cycle. And
Yeah.
so we'll know, hey, this company uses Challenger, this company uses Sandler, this company's using something in-house, they're using
Mhm.
Miller Hyman, right? Everybody knows who their competitors are using. And so I know typically who we're competing against. There's a couple that make me nervous, but they're more like the boutique sales organizations like me.
Yeah.
Like, if I know
Yeah.
that I'm going up a couple people that I love and respect, I'm like, oh boy,
Yeah.
we gotta strap up here. But for the most part, I don't run across them, so I don't know much about their sales
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah.
No shade, no shade.
Yeah.
They're,
Yeah.
they're killing it, right? So
I was
um
just curious on
yeah.
your, just you being in sales, what you think of that kind of.
Let me
They're
give
definitely
props to
loud.
somebody who is outstanding, Alex
Yeah.
Hormozy. That guy
Yeah.
is a wonderful example of marketing blended with sales. I mean,
Yeah.
he is someone that I engage with their content and trust wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And I imagine when a sales book comes out, it will be a very valuable one. So there's one where that person's doing like hitting all the
Yes.
biomarkers for me.
Very
Um,
educational, which I appreciate in a
yeah.
lot of the content as you break it down. A funny story that I actually had a chance to meet Alex and Layla
Oh, cool.
in Vegas.
Did you go to the workshop?
I went to no, I didn't go to the workshop. No,
Okay.
no. This was content. We were filming content.
Oh, okay.
And so it wasn't, they weren't on the list, and I was filming the next day in Vegas at the Wynn with David Meltzer. And what happened is I flew in super late, so I didn't realize, and I was super tired, and they were like, yo, come through today if you want. because we got some people coming by. They didn't tell me who it was going to be. So I was like, dude, it's late. I got to get up early to film. Like, I'm going to catch you guys tomorrow.
Right.
I walk in there the next day. They're like, dude, Alex and Layla came through. And they showing me pictures and everything. I'm like, God dang it. Are you serious? Like, the time I'm like, well, normally I'm like, dude, let's go. Like, let's go. I was just, for some reason, I was like, I just was so exhausted, bro.
Yeah.
So I'm kicking myself for that one.
That's hilarious. No, I've been thinking about heading out to their workshop because I try and eat the medicine that I'm prescribing, which is fill in the gaps, like
100%,
and train up. So if you want branding and marketing help, get it direct from the source. So I think I'm gonna head out there this summer. That's the goal.
Yeah. That's cool. So you're always training and working on your own stuff.
Yeah. Look, it's expensive not to learn these things. That's what I did this for so long with social media marketing because I'm that like last of the Mohicans of Gen Xers, right? At 43, I'm class of 2000. You know what I mean? We still had the flip phones and the Nokias and I had a pager. Dude,
trust me, I know.
Right. So social wasn't like, not much. I'm still the grumpy old dude at a concert. It's like, put that shit away, right?
Yeah.
So here, you want to feel old. So what's your what do you listen to the most? Like, what's your genre?
Dude, I mean,
just give me the one that you can't live without.
I'm old school, like, I mean, hip hop probably.
Okay.
Hip hop, most of it, R&B hip hop.
All right, so I got tickets. It's next month. I'm going to see KRS-One here in Charleston.
Nice.
And so I had a group of salespeople, young people, and I was so thrilled. I just got the ticket like that morning. I was like, yo, I'm going to see KRS-One. And everyone was like, nothing?
Yeah.
Nothing? Not like, nobody said it. I was like, no, this can't be happening. I said,
you're like, who is that?
I was like, no,
just one of the pioneers.
Just one of the pioneers of hip hop.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's a little side note, but yeah, I put the blinders on for social media marketing, and in fact, my father did the same thing. This is a real interesting story, an important lesson for people. I start to look under every rock as opposed to I thought I could identify the rock that would have something cool under it. And that has failed miserably. So my father, I remember he would go out to Vegas and do a 3-day workshop with this gentleman named Tom Antion. Now, most people won't know Tom Antion's name, but Tom was one of the real pioneers in sales funnels. When I talk about one pager, like digital marketing, and like it was just like a 1-page website. I mean, you're talking early 2000s. And my dad would say he had a speaker attached to his computer that would go cha-ching every time a sale was made. And he said, we're in his house and it's just going cha-ching, 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 ching, ching, cha-ching, ching. And my dad was like, what is that? And he goes, those are people buying my ebook or buying my workbook, and it's getting mailed out from Amazon. And my dad was taught this, came back and never implemented it. If my father, and here's what's really going to kill you. Guess who owns the trademark to the sales funnel? We do. Guess who owns the URL salesfunnel.com? We do. My dad never monetized it because he said,
wait, what? Wait. You own the trademark and the domain for that?
Correct. If you go to salesfunnel.com, it'll take you straight to my father. You'll see his beautiful Italian mug, salesfunnel.com. So here's what happened. This is such an interesting story, which I didn't plan on bringing up, but the book that he wrote was called Success Secrets of the Sales Funnel. He wrote it in 1989, pre-internet. So the way he designed his sales strategy was the customers all the way over here and you're over here. There's a series of steps you take that bring you closer together to a contract. So it was like, how do I meet you and go from stranger to contract? And when he mapped that out, it's like, oh, this looks like a funnel, trademarked it, bought the URL. And actually the process we still teach, I call it the sales funnel. It's just not digital marketing for us. It's the funnel on how I get you from hello to contract. And so I tell that story because he could have been ultra wealthy if he had just implemented something his very wealthy colleague and friend, who he also paid a lot of money to go out to that workshop for. It was probably back then, it's probably like 10, 15 grand to spend a weekend with him. Came back, was like, you know what? I'm not internet savvy. I'm an old guy. I don't need to do this. And then I came and did the same thing with social media. And then when I'm not the person that's going to do the video. TikTok, I don't dance, right? Instagram, I don't really care about putting pictures. And it's just such a mistake, obviously, as you know, and I know now. And so if you're listening to this as an entrepreneur, boy, you're better off getting it wrong than missing the ones that were right.
Man, that even hits me a little bit too, because I know I've there's been times where I'm like, I should have hopped on and I didn't, and I'm kicking myself now because I'm like, dude, where would I have been now if I would have hopped on at that time? Dude, that story is crazy. First of all, that's gonna be a clip because that story is crazy, bro. Yeah. Because you could have been. So your dad, and then because Russell Brunson is really known for the ClickFunnels.
Right. So everyone goes, well, how come you can't sue all these people? Well, we tried. Microsoft Act was the first violator of the term sales funnel. And my lawyer basically told my old man, you can fight it and you will win and you will go completely broken in the process.
Yeah. They're going to drag it out for
exactly
eternity.
And so he never defended the term. And now basically it's like trying to defend something that it's not. So most people would look at our business and go, you're sales consulting. You don't do a marketing funnel.
Yeah.
And you haven't defended that in 20 years. So, it is what it is.
Insane story though.
That's like, if anybody wants to build funnels for me, I'll put a little tab on my website that says marketing funnels. If you're any good, I'll outsource. I'll give you the leads. Just pay me a chunk of the money. You know what I mean?
There you go. Get that residual, dude. That's a crazy story. I did not expect to hear that from you today at all. But it's also such an important lesson for everybody because we see these trends, we see this time, and sometimes we're just hard-headed and we don't want to just put in the time to learn. And I think whether you believe in his kind of manner or stuff with Gary Vee, I think that the one thing I love about what his message is like the fact of, if you don't understand something, just go into it for a few hours and just look at it. Stop making all these compliments or all these comments on it and all these suggestions or things that you think it is, and just go into it he didn't say create content. He said just, hey, if you don't like TikTok or you don't understand it, just use it for 3 hours and then make some whatever you want to put in your head about it. Just at least use it. And there's a lot of people in this life that they say they're doing a lot of this and they don't know a thing. They haven't even stepped into it for a couple hours for them to even understand it. Especially in the YouTube comments and social media comments, like they don't know what they're talking about.
Bro, it's the comment section is treacherous.
It's treacherous. Like because they're just behind the keyboard or they're just tapping and then it's like, dude, there's no repercussion. I want to ask you, man, you're dropping a lot of gems for people today. Speaking. So how, obviously I see the natural transition from like sales training, consulting to speaking, but you speak all the time. So, and I know some sales consultants that they speak, but it's every once in a while,
right.
And then they're doing more training inside companies and they're going in. What got you into speaking in that way, where you're speaking, you're on the road, you're constantly on the go? And then how did you get better? Describe to me from your first time on stage to now. What were the differences?
You want to talk about pain? Record yourself doing your first speech. and then rewatching it. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But so speaking's another one of those that I grew up around. It ended up being so. My dad, again, as you can tell, I give all props to the old man. Without him, none of this happens. So he had his background was he was a number one salesperson in two very different industries, and like they would actually rank out like he started like his most popular industry was he sold swimming pools, like high end concrete pools.
Yeah.
So they'd have like a top 100 list, and he was always at the top. And so that consistency had conferences asking him to share how he did it. That's how he then developed the process for a teachable format. And so he was speaking for a living. And there's I don't know what's your experience with National Speakers Association,
a
but
lot.
Yeah, and bro, that's wide ranging too. But like back in the day, it was wild. I mean, there were wild human beings in that association. And so I was I mean, it was like, you'd see the dude who was handicapped and had like a pro charger on the back of his wheelchair, be zipping through the lobby at like 40 miles an hour.
Dang.
Like, and then there'd be another person who was like, I remember Nito Cobain, who's the chancellor of High Point University, one of the sharpest dressers, most eloquent human beings ever. You just be enamored speaking. I saw Les Brown at 10 years old. There's another guy, Willie Jolly, who was one of the most powerful speakers I'd ever seen. I saw Harvey McKay speak when I was probably 13. I mean, you're seeing powerhouses speaking over and over again. So it was another one of those things where I was enamored with the business. And from about 8 to 16, I was in what they called the youth group, where you would hear speakers who were predominantly speakers for youth audiences. So that's such a powerful place. I mean, what a cool industry for that to be your thing. Then 16 to about 21, I was a youth leader at that. So I was in NSA pretty much my entire adolescence.
Wow.
Then like there was a big gap. I didn't think about speaking. And then once the entrepreneurial journey really kicked in, a couple of those clients that kept me on actually hired me to speak at their regional sales conference.
Yep.
And that's another of those things where I thought I was hot shit and that I had good verbal skills, and I recorded it thinking I was going to get a demo. And I looked at it, and if I tell you I'm sitting in my recliner, I got claw marks down the side of the armrest because I'm just like horrified of my pacing, my inflection. When I thought I was getting a reaction, I wasn't. It was wretched. And I vowed never to let that happen again. And then I started taking coaching. Patricia Fripp is someone that who I went all in on early. Then I worked for a guy named, when I worked in Charlotte, I worked for a guy named Jeffrey Gitomer, who wrote the Little Red Book of Selling and the Sales Bible. And he was like rock star status at the time. He was speaking everywhere. So I saw him speaking a lot. And so I just started to get a little bit better every time. And then I constantly, the key is recording it and watching it and just being
looking back at the film. This is the same. It's like the back to the football analogy. You're looking back at the film.
You're
making the adjustments.
You cannot fix your behavior if you don't know what you did. If you think you're going to remember what you did, you're going to remember the good stuff, not the bad stuff.
100%.
So,
100%.
My speaking journey has been amazing. It's the number one driver of our retainer business. So
really,
if I get on stage, that's where most of our leads come from. So when I personally prospect to get business, I'm initially prospecting to get on stage. And then I am good enough now to where they say, oh, man, how do we work with you more? Then we engage. Then that starts my sales process. We make that happen. I close the business, and most of my clients are on 1 to 3 year retainers. So that's the model. So that's my speaking business.
What do you with your speaking? Do you so you have a book as well? So do you, when you talk about like charging a fee for you to speak? How did you come up with your fee for today? And then how do you mold in your book into that as well?
Yeah. So the fee is basically what you feel comfortable with plus 15% mentally. Right.
Talk about that. Why is that?
It's because you've got to get over the fear of the number that's going to come out of your mouth.
100%. I knew you were going to go there
so
too.
If you think your fee's 5, you go 7,500.
Yeah.
If you think your fee's 7,500, you go 10. If you think your fee's 10, you go 15. Right.
Yep.
And obviously, your calendar dictates how high your fee goes.
100%.
If you don't have shit in your calendar, you'll do it for $500. You and I both know that, right? You're like, oh, I need to eat.
Yeah,
right?
I need to eat.
I had one of our speaker colleagues say, I don't have fee integrity, I have eat integrity. I wish I remember said that, but that was a great line. But so here's how I justify, because you can't just drop your fee without a business reason, and you have to have fee integrity in the marketplace.
Yes.
So it is the business reasons for me for ever dropping my fee is, will you let me pitch from the stage? That's one. So if my fee goes below a certain threshold, you must let me pitch from the stage. If not, I need to charge my full fee. And the other is, if it's possibly a private client and there's a bigger opportunity, I will say I'd be happy to do a what I would call paid audition, where I'll reduce my fee drastically. Or you pay the fee up front and I'll roll that into a retainer if you do it. All I ask for in return is access to the key stakeholders after the talk if you liked it. It's like, so there's always a business reason for
I like that. Paid audition.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I like that.
You can never give a concession without a business reason is rule number 1 in any sales, right? So if I'm selling to you and let's just say it's $1 million contract and you go, Tony, I'll sign it right now if you can knock off 2%. And I say, yes, there's a certain behavioral style out there that'll go, whoa, what just happened? Are you taking advantage of me? What else are you hiding? How can you just do that? And maybe I had room. Maybe I'm willing to take it out of my commission. There's got to be a business reason, because either you're going to lose that deal or you're going to end up like Swiss cheese due to a negotiation. They're just going to poke holes in you and you're never going to get any margin. So in any of these scenarios, I live by certain rules. And so I predetermine what those thresholds are. So if it's no fee, you're going to let me pitch. And and the best way to do that. And I said, look, I'll give value, 95% of the talk, the last 5%, I'm going to hard pitch them. I'm going to have a QR code with the link to my online training with the whole spiel. I'll basically Russell Brunson Jr. This, but today only it's this.
Today only. Get it for the low price.
I mean, and that's how I do it.
Wow, I love that. And because we got a lot of speakers that listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
So that's gold, man. I've never heard about the paid auditions. And I've been working with speakers and just in this speaking space for years, man. So that's interesting. Paid auditions. And then the way on how you lower the fee is dependent on what your ability is. And then that meeting with the stakeholders, guys, this is gold. This is gold. I mean, it's good, because that's ultimately what you want. If you kill it on stage, because then usually the business kind of just like, they just move on, right? After the event, they move on. But if you can get a meeting with some of the key stakeholders after, or just a pre-planned call that's already in the calendar, like that's gold, because then that call, especially if you just killed it on stage, it should go well for you. I mean, the chances, the close rate is a lot higher.
A lot higher. And you got to remember, I'm not saying this just to sound cool, but I am very confident once I get in front of you how high my closing average is once I engage in my sales process. If it's gotten to as far as you see me speak and then I engage in my process to get from hello to contract, it's done deal. So and it is pretty high unless I determine it's not a good fit. So you could, in NSA, they tell you to never speak for free. That's not true if you believe you could sell. Like I did a free one. I remember, so this is a really good if you got speakers, I got on I use 10 times the 10 times.
I use that all the time. Yeah.
All right. So 10 times and I'll do a geographic within 2 hours. And my outreach to the keynote, the executive director, whoever's booking it, said, look, I'm within a 2-hour radius, which means I can drive and I don't need a hotel. So I know that that budgets are everything, especially for associations. I'm a world-class speaker. Also, with it being so easy for me to get to, as long as there's nothing prioritized in my calendar, and you also give me an out if I'm speaking for very low, like maybe I can give you like a 3-month cancellation. Like I have all these parameters, but said this could work really well. You can get a very expensive speaker for next to nothing. And also if I've deemed it a good opportunity. So I did that for the Sales and Marketing Transportation Association. It was in Savannah. I did the talk. I think they paid me peanuts, like $1,500.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting a 1-day training program, which they paid $12,500 for.
Yeah.
Out of that because of VP of sales. So I ended up parlaying that. So you're talking, very little. And it was a 30-minute talk, 30-minute breakout. And I knew I would have the right audience because it says sales in the title.
Yeah.
And so, I went to Savannah, banged out a quick talk.
Yeah.
Picked up $1,500, got a client, boom. And then it's like,
came right back.
So don't tell me that you don't speak for free. Just find out what's valuable for all parties involved. Yes. Not just you, but for everybody.
Yeah.
Make it make sense for everybody. I love saying this makes sense for you and me.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Cause it's a mutual beneficial thing for both parties, which when you can make both parties feel like they're winning, then it's like, okay, done deal. Let's do this. If somebody's getting screwed over, like even the person that's on the up and up, I guess depending on who you are, but I mean, probably just don't feel right,
Yeah, like, no, I totally agree.
Because how many times have we gotten something for free, and it was definitely more of a headache than anything, right?
Yeah,
be like, oh, I'm getting a free videographer for this, and then you look back at the footage, you're like, bro, what is this? Like, what is this though?
I've been
why is there no audio? Oh, sorry, something happened with the audio, man. It's like, yeah, but you got it for free, man. You got the hookup.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, there's so I could talk to you all day, man. There's so much gold because you're in sales, and so this is, I think, is one of the number one or number two problem for most businesses. It's either marketing or sales for most of it. And then, of course, I think the third and fourth can be flip-flopped on execution and, product delivery and that kind of stuff. But most people's problem when it comes down to growing what they have going on is the attention on their eyeballs on who they are, and then the ability to close, the ability to actually sell your product or service. A lot of people just don't learn this stuff. They're not shooting shots in the gym. They're not in the field looking at the tape. They're not training. They're not practicing this stuff. And it's just so important to do that. And then that's why I think the number one takeaway from this is, like, if you guys are not training throughout 2025, or at least each year, like, you guys have to put some stuff in place, like make it a priority, because if you're sick of being where you're at, like, you can only look at yourself. You can point fingers all day, but if you're not willing to change, if you're not willing to do some action, like, dude, what are we talking? Like, if you really don't like where you're at today, guys, reach out to somebody. We're not saying reach out to us in particular. If you want to, you can, but reach out to somebody, man. If you really don't like where you're at, you have to constantly keep training and developing and getting that skill set sharpened, man. Keep sharpening that sword.
Yeah. I'll leave you because you reminded me of something. So this will kind of be because I know we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
So I love basketball, right? And unfortunately, I was born in a 5'9" frame with Italian bloodline. You know what I mean? So my vertical was not very high.
You got a jumper though. You got a jumper?
I got a little bit of a shot, but I can't get it over anybody's 6 feet. I'll tell you, fun. So I used to go, like, I was doing P90X in my 20s. So
everybody was doing P90X.
I was fit. So it's the only time I got on the court at the park and, like, could hang a little bit. One time I bricked up a shot that bounced off the backboard. That was me trying to make the shot, by the way. It came back to me and I laid it up. And all the brothers looked at me. They're like, "Oh shit!" And I was like, "That wasn't on purpose. I didn't do that on purpose." Dude. So all that is, I love basketball. I love the game. I love playing, right? And so, like, LeBron James could teach me how to dunk a basketball for every day for the remainder of 2025 for 3 hours a day. It is not physically going to happen because I'm not talented enough. I wasn't born with that, right? But he could spend maybe 30 minutes a day for 30 days on my free throw, and my free throw percentage would undoubtedly go up. There's a difference between skill and talent. And if you have a skill, you can rehearse it in your mind, you can practice it, you can self-talk, you can visualize it, you can hear things going right or wrong, you can play different scenarios, home or away. So there's a lot of things that go into the skill. And what I find is most salespeople are talented. They're gonna be good. And they're like the Ben Simmons of basketball. They're talented enough to stay in the league, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For basketball fans, they know what I'm talking. For anyone outside of it, they may that one may go over their head, but but so like a lot of people are talented enough to do good, but to do outstanding, it's a combination of skill and talent. And I have a process. I didn't need the drive. I didn't grow up where I may, if I don't succeed, I could end up on the street. That wasn't the life. That was more my dad's model, right? But my business partner, Brian, who's a fascinating human being, complete different life. Grew up in a single wide, never went to college. His mother passed away when he was 1. His father demonized money. And Brian has a purpose. And Brian and I, when we converged, he's my partner in the Constance Group. When we converged, he was doing very well and I was doing very well. And so how is that possible? Well, it's a combination of his purpose overcame things and my process overcame other things. So if you ask, like, what are the top 1%ers are? They're the people that find their purpose and the people that then find a process and the people that understand the difference between skill and talent. When you've got that figured out, I don't care what your background is, who you are, what you do, or where you come from, you can be absolutely rich being a great salesperson. There ain't no doubt about it.
Man, dude, that's fire. That's fire. And I love the equation around it. I mean, this is great information for people to take home. Really look at what they got going on in their current situation, guys, and it's time to level up, man. So I want to talk about really quick with Tony. So you launched a new sales growth engine.
Yeah, so sales growth engine is part of that scaling model that we're working. We're slow playing it, but man, it is on fire. So it is basically my whole program from new business sales to account retention and growth to negotiation skills. I'm recording the prospecting course right now. And there's also, if you're a leader, there's an option for sales leadership. So we've built everything that goes into revenue generation through sales or client activity. It's in there. So it's us condensed and it's powerful, man. We've got a feature that you can connect with me via what we call video ask. You send me a quick 1-minute video asking a question. We do masterminds. It's solid, man. So it's as close as you can get to being a client of mine without having to pay the big old fat retainers that those big companies pay.
Right. And like we said, guys, if you don't like where you're at, this might be a good first step. You guys got to get this information. You got to get training. You need to constantly be working on this skill because you can't just survive off talent forever if you got it.
It's true.
So where can people connect with you, Tony? How can they get in touch with you? I always tell everybody on every episode, everybody's reachable. That I bring on, even if I bring on some really big guests, but everybody is reachable. Just say, hey, I heard you on the Forever podcast. I'm interested. I want to learn more. I want to get in touch. I want to have some coffee, whatever it is. Just reach out to Tony. I mean, how can they get connected to you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Super easy. Tony Leone. You could recognize the ugly mug, but basically you can find me Tony Leone, the Constance Group, or Instagram. Easy to get into the DMs because it's not too crowded yet. And it's Tony Leone Speaker on Instagram. So if you like it, just hit me up. And if anything, I just appreciate a follow and engagement, man. I'm in it for the long game. I've been successful on the consulting side, so we're building out the scalable side. So if anything, throw me a like and a subscribe. I'd be forever grateful.
Dope, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was crazy. Like I could go another 2 hours asking different questions, but thank you for your time, and everybody listening, watching, please like, comment, subscribe to the podcast. We appreciate everybody showing us love. We got a lot of heat coming. We're really happy with what Tony dropped today, just to really help empower leaders, CEOs, businesses, especially entrepreneurs, to get to that next level. So don't forget, guys, if you can change your circle, you can change your life. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace and love.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more amazing content that we're going to be putting out. And don't forget, you can change your circle to change your life.